In this video, we are going to prime the first coat of microcement that we have applied in the previous videos, and we are going to then apply the second coat of microcement. Now, the first thing that we have to do is to hoover off the board ready to reprime. There will be a little bit of dust left over from the sanding process, and we want to get rid of that so that it doesn't clog up the primer. So grab your hoover and start hoovering up the surface. What you'll find as you're hoovering is that any little pits will show up where the dust is being sucked out of them. That's fine, it's to be expected. So that's the vacuuming done. I'm happy again that it's nice and smooth. If you have got to this point and you feel there's any rough spots or any high spots, then you need to go back really and just give those a light sand and get it nice and level. Running my hand over it, I can feel that it is nice and level. And now we're dust free and we're ready to move on to the priming stage for the second coat. So in a previous video, I showed you how to mix up the primer. Do that again in exactly the same way. And then we're going to just start applying it in exactly the same way as that first priming video. Now, the point of the primer is to do two things. It's going to stop the substrate, what's on the board, sucking the moisture out of the next coat of microcement, and it's going to apply a bit of adhesion effectively so that the microcement can stick to what you're putting it onto. So be fairly generous, don't put too much on, but don't be too light. You need to get it not entirely saturated, but certainly wet with the primer. So you don't want it pooling on, but you definitely want it covering the whole board and sucking in so it's an even colour throughout. Now, on larger surfaces, you're probably going to want to use a larger roller, so things like walls and floors. But on horizontal surfaces, such as worktops, then you will be quite happy with just a small 4-inch or 100mm foam roller. A few spots I've missed there on the edges, just make sure that they are going the same colour, so darkening down what's on there. Little spot there. Little spot there and there. Okay. Now I'm happy that I've primed that evenly over the entire board. So we're going to leave this go tacky now for about 30 minutes or so, and then we're going to go straight on with the second coat of microcement. So 30 minutes has passed, the primer is now soaked in and it's dried enough for me to go on and apply the second coat of microcement, which I have mixed up in the meantime. In a previous video, I showed you how to mix up the microcement, so refer back to that if necessary. The process is exactly the same. Take your microcement, which should be nice and loose, and with your microcement spatula or whichever trowel you are planning on applying your microcement with, we're simply going to run that over the surface. Now, as you can see, every so often there's a little bit that hasn't mixed properly. You can work that in on the surface as you apply. So as before, getting the microcement nice and thin. And you can tell that it's going on thinly because of that scraping noise. So step one when you're applying is to get all the board or whatever you're applying the microcement to entirely covered. So don't worry if there's any marks where there's sort of scratch lines. We'll return to those once we've got the full area on. Now this board is 1 metre by 1 metre, and I'm using our 1 square metre kit here, so I know that there will be enough material to cover the entire board. What I would recommend is, if you're placing an order for your project, then I would always slightly overestimate the amount of materials that you're going to require by about 10 or 15%, so that you know that you're not going to run out of material halfway through a job. That said, I don't want that to encourage you to put it on nice and thickly, because that's not the way that microcement works. Microcement works best when it's really thin. Now, as you can see, I've covered the entire board now, and there's loads of material on here, so I'm going to have to work now to try and take a bit off. And now that it's covered, this is the point where I can go back over all those little sort of scratch lines, or whatever you want to call them, and just smooth those down and fill in those gaps. There's plenty of pot life with the microcement, so don't worry about rushing. Just get it nice and neat. If there's any little spots where you accidentally dig your trowel in, don't worry. You can smooth those out. And if you put a big strike line in, it might be that you just need to put a bit more material on, not too much. You can get those covered over. So keep working at it. Every so often, it's worth just taking the excess off your trowel and keeping that edge nice and clean, because what you'll find is if you don't, you're just kind of shifting the material aside, and then you'll get lines like that. Now, as you work the material more and more, you can become more gentle. And you'll begin to see it smoothing over. Now I appreciate that this is just 1 square metre, so I can work on this to my heart's content. If you're doing a bigger area, then you might not have that luxury. So just remember that the next stage, we're going to be sanding the microcement anyway. So get it as smooth as you can. It is a nice material to work with, so it will get pretty smooth, but you'll be sanding in the next stage of the project anyway to take any undulations off. Okay, I'm happy now that that is nice and smooth, and I'm happy to let that now cure for up to about 24 hours, and then I'll hit it tomorrow with the sander, and we'll take off any sort of mini high spots, as it were, and then we'll be ready to give it a coat of sealer. Okay, see you next time.